Let's get started. I'm just going to try and share my screen, but this looks different from the Zoom I always use. So let's see whether it works. Can you see my screen which says exploring the application of users and differences of business case? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, Muthu, we can see.
Yes.
Okay, very good. When I first started out almost 30 years ago in startups, most of us didn't know anything about business cases or business models. All we had was business plan to do. So today, there's so many different tools, and they're probably much easier to use and quicker to use, because business plans often takes quite a while to do. We will talk about the differences of these. So let's start off with the definition. What is the differences? So we've got three of them: business case, business model, and business plan. So often a business case is initiated by a company which wants to do something, want to check it out. So large organizations usually will do a viability of the business, and this is called a business case. And a business case will help you to tell the strength and the weaknesses of the proposal you're trying to do in a systemic and objective manner. So that's what a business case will do. It will basically, what you're trying to do is you're justifying what you're trying to do. You're building a case for yourself. As the name suggests, business case. The next one you would look at is the business model. This is how you would generate revenues, make profit for your organization. Now, it is often people misunderstand. Profit doesn't necessarily mean just cash. For example, you could also help rural folks get better water. So that is actually profitable. That is in turn useful to rural folks to get better water, better electricity, and so on. So a business model, you need to look at a business model and work out what it does. So we'll go through we'll go through the business model as well before we get into the business plan. So why we need to do that. And the one which we're trying to do is the business plan. Business plan is primarily a resume for your business, where it will help you and guide you through. It is like a map. It's a live document. And often many businesses leave it after they raise their first funding, which is a mistake. They should continue to keep it alive as they do more things, as they do new things. They should keep it extremely live and useful. Otherwise, it is not going to help you, because you never know when somebody wants to see your business plan. And it's not the number of pages. For example, Vinod Khosla's first business plan for Sun Microsystems was 5 pages. That's all. And he raised money. So you don't need to have more than, you don't need more than what is required. His business plan is only 5 pages long. And that's how they got their first funding. Next one, we're going to look at the applications and uses of the three things. So as I said, we'll start with the business case. It essentially tells us the priorities, the alternatives you can use, and how you're going to benefit the firm. How will this create value? How will it create opportunities? You put on the objectives of the business, and what do you expect to get it out? So for example, a typical business case will look like this. Please tell me if you can see it should be a Word document. Can you see it? Or I may have to switch to another screen.
No, we can't see it.
Okay, let me see how this works. I may have to. Can you see it now? No.
Actually, I can see something called Viva Zone.
No. It
Exploring
should be a
the-
Word
We're
document.
still on your PPT. We're
Yeah.
still on your PPT.
Okay, so we need to, I think, stop that screen and
Yeah,
change.
stop the screen sharing and you can share the Word document.
Yeah, so let me just do that. Sorry.
No problem.
The disadvantage of doing this online. Okay, let me try now again. Share. Oh. You should be able to see a Word document. Is it coming?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. So the contents of this is usually you need to have a business summary. And the first thing you talk about is the business idea. Then you talk about the vision for the business and what are the objectives. And then you talk about the business model, which we will talk in a few minutes. Here you do an introduction. You talk about the products and services and also the revenue you are going to do. And you need to have an operational plan, how you're going to actually execute. Now, most of the problems we find at the startups are They're very good with their ideas. They're probably very good in raising funds too, but a lot of them fail to execute, which is part of the operational work. So they need to be able to execute. So you need to have an operational plan set up. You also need to look at your startup requirements, things like licenses, especially if you work in healthcare. You need to know which are the licenses and permits you need. For example, in the US and Canada, if you're a practicing consultant, you need to have an insurance to cover. So when I do this sort of work in Canada, I need to be covered by insurance. So that's depending on different places to different places. And then you need to talk about your proposed premises, the ownership structure. We talk about your management, which will have the structure, and you talk about your competency, why you are the right person. And then, as always, startups will have gaps. So you need to talk about your gaps. Then you do a technology analysis. If you're a technology business, if you're a service business, then you do an analysis of the service. If you're a process, you do an analysis on the process. You describe it, you do a market need, you do current solutions, what is available, and the outcome. And then you dive into your market analysis. Market analysis is different from your market plan. Market analysis is only for you to find out who's your target market, who's your customer profile, what do they like, what will they pay for, what price they will pay for, how often they will buy, and what volume they will buy, and also their behavior. So this is where AI is starting to play a big role because it automatically catches all this. Next, you look at how you will sell your activity, how you will distribute it. Logistics is very, very crucial. Then you move on to competition. Most startups come to us, say they don't have competitors. There's only two times you don't have competitors. One, no one else seen the opportunity, so there's no competition. As soon as they see it, you will be in trouble. The other reason there's no competition, because there is no benefit in what you're doing. These are the only two times you don't have a competitor. So please, please be aware, if you don't have a competitor, you need to be careful. And then you need to have a purchasing analysis, how you will purchase, how will you buy things, how will you stock, what will you do? Then you need to do a financial summary. Hopefully IC does do work on finance for non-managers. So that is a program you should attend to understand this. As a startup, you don't have to really build your own financials. The accountant can do it for you, but you should be able to understand these figures. What are ratios? What is a P&L? What is the cash flow? All those things. Then you need to do an investor analysis in your case, and then you need to talk about your roadmaps. And then you talk about who are the people, who's going to approve it, how will you schedule meetings and references. I will share all this with you so you can use it to your benefit. There is no problem. So I'm going to stop the screen and go back to my PPT, all being well. You can stop me anytime to ask any questions. I have no issues. Hopefully, are you able to see my PPT now?
Yes.
Okay, very good. So let's move on. Okay, a business model, as I've already said to you, is to ensure you have enough information to flow through the company. Large organizations, they use typically business plans, business models to organize their company due to different divisions. So each one of them will probably have a different business model. And this business model also allows the company to refine their processes. And it gives you an advantage how you can advance the ability of the company to produce food and so on. Usually in a day-to-day, in a live, in-person seminar, I would ask you to fill this up and then take it from there into the business plan. But since we're doing it online, I will not do that. So I'll share everything with you. You can use anything you want. I have no problem. So this is one of the most important things discovered. It really helps you. You can get this done within a couple of hours. Just quickly what it does, what it doesn't do. You need to know who your key partners are, what are your key activities, what resources you require, and the value proposition you are creating for your customer. And this is something very, very important for you to look at. And how will you build your relationship and the channels you go through. And the last one is the customer segmentation. It's very, very important. One of the startups, as just said, they're looking at women going back to work. So they've identified the segmentation, and they might want to further segmentate that. They might want to do it under geography, under different types of skill sets and age group as well, and experience to further segmentate so they'll be able to target the right customer audience. And on the left-hand side is always the cost, and on the right-hand side is your income, revenue. So the right-hand side should outweigh the left-hand side. If it doesn't, then you need to relook at your business plan, your business model to make sure that works. So now we'll get into the business plan. And the business plan, it is essentially, it serves as a roadmap. I've already said that. It will tell you exactly what your business is about. You list all the things you require, the items you require, and what it costs. And you talk about your strength. And you need to take care of the weaknesses as well. Often, many of them don't do that. And the business plan that sells the company, not the product. So we talk about customer discovery. Some of you have attended customer discovery. You never ask the customer, will he buy your product? In India, nobody will say no. They will say yes. The way is, you need to ask them, how much will they pay for a product like this? Will they be willing to use a product like this? So never ask whether the product is a good product or not. Don't ask for them to say it's a good product, because nobody likes to be rude. So they will always say it's a good product. You would need to ask them, how much would you pay for this? How many people would use it? Who will make a decision for a product like this in your organization? So please be careful. So if you have not done customer discovery, please do it. Please do take a customer discovery program. And in the customer discovery program, we make them go and do 50 to 100 interviews over a 5 to 6 weeks period, where they go and talk to potential customers, partners, and come back. So that's very, very important. Now I'm going to show you what a business plan contains. So again, I'm going to come out of this, and I'll try without stopping the screen. Does it show my Word file now? If it doesn't, then I'll have to stop this.
No, it doesn't.
No.
Not yet.
It doesn't, huh? Okay, so let it open, then I'll change the screen. Do you see a template now, business plan template, or it doesn't show? Or I have not shared the screen, one or the other. Let me. How is it? Can you see?
Yes.
A Word document?
Yes, we can see the Word
Okay.
document.
So I will share this with you, so don't worry too much about it. A typical business plan, it is not restricted to this. Please, please, please. It is a typical business plan, but you need to modify it according to what you do. So for example, I put product and services. If you don't have a product, you will not write that product. If you don't have a service, you will not write service there. You will describe what you talk about. So the first one is called an executive summary. I will go through each one of these in a bit. I'm just going to show you the template. Business description, you need to talk about the concept. And the most important is the opportunity, the vision and mission, the objective. All these are different. Vision is the big picture. Mission is how you go. And objective usually has numbers and timeline. And your management team, which will consist board of advisors, management team, and also with the people who work for you. So that would be your first chapter. And the next chapter will include all your products and services. We'll talk about them, we describe them, we talk about the value, we talk about the cost analysis, and how you price them. Next, you'll do a market analysis, where you look at the environment, in technology, social, and economic trends. And then you will describe your market description. Then you look at competitive environment analysis. You will have direct and indirect, and also people who can replace you. So you need to talk about all those. You then do a competitive analysis. Who are your competitors? Then you come up with a customer profile. Market strategy is after analyzing, you start doing that. You strategize the segmentation, the product, the pricing, distribution, and promotion. And you might have heard the 4 Ps. So that's what the 4 Ps is about. Then you'd get into operations. I know I'm talking about operations a lot. We find many startups struggle in the operation plan. They are not very clear. So if you look at it, some of you are now in just starting stage. That's the developing stage. Then you're on a startup mode. Then you're on production. Then you're on sales. Then you're on customer service. So you need to see each one of these, how you will manage. And please do attend, if you can, a financial plan course, how the financials are done, what are break-even points, what are profit and losses, how do you project cash flow, and the ratios which are important to your business, and how do you make these assumptions. Then you look at the funding area, how you fund. And most business plans lack this chapter called critical risk analysis. Most of them don't care. They don't write about it. You need to talk about your development risk, your technology risk. And often in medical devices, for example, the risk is bigger in manufacturing. So you need to take care of that. And financial risk, halfway you run out of money, what do you do? Market risk, something changes. Management risk, somebody leaves the company, you and your co-founder fight. What do you do next? So we need to think about that. Valuation risk, how you evaluate your company. And then we look at exit risk. You should also have an index, how you would approve your business plan, who approves it. You do a SWOT analysis of the proposed business, and you have to keep a detailed financial statement here. Up here you don't, but here you do need to keep. And then you need to have references, things like your partners, the resumes of the partners, the people you have made partners, and so on. So this is how a typical template for a business plan looks like. I'm going to stop this and return to the PPT. Now let me share the PPT. It should work.
Yeah.
Great, thank you. Now let's look at the differences of each one of these. Let's compare all 3 of them. The business case, I already told you, you would use it to decide whether you have a case. And this is a mistake we make. We should not convince ourselves it works. We need to find ways to see how it will work. There's no point telling yourself it works when it doesn't work. So you need to make sure you evaluate this business case properly. And then you find out how if there's a case, can you make money out of it is the next thing. When you have an answer to these 2, then you look at, as I already told you, business case is to say whether your thing is working or it's not going to work. And then you start writing a business plan based on this to demonstrate first. It will guide you to grow your business. Secondly, it demonstrates to other people, you know what you're doing. So this is the difference between these 2. First, you validate, then you start writing your business plan for you as a navigation tool. Now, between a business model and a business plan. Business model is how you make money, and business plan here talks about equipment, staff. What do you do with the financials? How do you market, and so on? So this is the differences between the 3 of them. Now we're looking at here, a business plan is completely dependent upon the business model. So you need to ensure that your business model explains how the flow of money within your company, both in and out. So you need to make sure it works. And the business plan is a structure needed to obtain that flow of money. If you change the business model, obviously you need to change the business plan as well. Although the entire business plan may not require changes, you may need to address, do you need to change your staff? Do you need to call new equipment? Do you need to change location? Do you need to do marketing? These changes you need to look, because the business plan the business model will then decide on your business plan. Now, I like this word. I always say, capturing your idea in a business plan. So let's now capture it. If you need any questions, if you need me to explain anything, please stop me. I'm more than happy. I have no issues. Now, first one, you need to define your business. Why do you need to capture it in the business plan? Most people don't know what business they're in, and I will show you in a minute. You need to identify your goals and serve as your business resume. And then You should include a current and pro forma business, a forma balance sheet, an income sheet, and a cash flow analysis. Additionally, all the sales personnel, suppliers, and all that. So it's pretty comprehensive. Now, what would it depend on? Your business plan depends on how you get funding from outside. How will you get credit? How will you convince management of your operation, promotion and marketing of your business, achieving of your goals? These are the importance of having a good business plan. I think one of you had said, one or two of you have said, you're moving to new products. That's why you're looking at writing a business plan. Great idea. So you need to make sure you cover all these things. Now ask yourselves, what service or product does your business provide and what needs does it fill? If it doesn't feel a need or a want, it's not going to get you anywhere. So that's the first question you ask yourself. Next question, you ask yourself, who are your potential customers for your product or services? And why will they purchase from you and not me? Very important question. And next, how will you reach me to sell your product? Where will you get the financial resources to start your business? So these are the questions you need to ask even before you start writing anything. And this business plan should cover, I've already said, description of the business, marketing, finance, and management. These are broad 4 topics you need to make sure your business plan handles. Now I'm going to go through a typical business plan, how it will, what each of these things do, and give you some examples as well. The executive summary is the first 2 or 3 pages. Usually you write this at the end. Now I'll explain this after I go through each one of them. Next one is company direction. Next one is company operation. And then you talk about product and services. Then you talk about market analysis. Then you have a marketing plan, financial plan, and supporting documents. So this is how you should write your business plan. I will share the template with you at the end of the session. The first few pages, usually 2 to 3 pages, is called the executive summary. And this is the summary of the whole business. There are 2 thoughts to this. Some say you write it at the start and then do your business plan. There is no right or wrong. You decide which works for you. I prefer to write this in the end because you have covered all your information and then you do a summary. If these 2 pages are poor, nobody reads the rest of it. Please remember, each of them get every day about 100 business plans. Last year, Chennai Angels got 1,000 business plans, and Chennai Angels is not the largest angel network. So imagine somebody like Indian network, Indian Angels, how much must have they got? Maybe 10,000 applications. So please be careful. That is why those who get funded are those who know somebody in the network. So that's why you need to build your network to ensure these business plans are read and looked at. I remember Sharat Sharma. He used to be CEO of Yahoo, and he is a very active angel investor. He used to tell me, if I send somebody to him and he is the lead investor, he would most certainly look at it because it's been referenced. And because they get so many. Yes, it's an unfair model, but how can we read so many? So we need to be able to do things like that. So many angel network work that way. If the lead investor is sort of encouraging it, others will put money into it. So very, very important. Your first chapter, we will not call executive summary as chapter, we'll call this the first chapter. You need to talk about your present situation. Are you in idea stage? You are in POC, you are in prototype. What are you doing? Initial market offering, mid-level market, or you already exhausted the market. So you need to talk about your present situation. What are your visions? What is your mission? What's your objective? And your goals. These are very, very important. Your goals and objectives have figures. They are not like the vision and mission. They have figures, they have timeline. Very, very important. Your next chapter talks about your company operation. Every company requires a legal business description. For example, to be incubated at IITMIC, you have to be a private limited company. We don't incubate LLPs or sole proprietors. There's a reason for that, because those have legal complications. A private limited one, it's limited to the shares of what someone owns. So that's why you need to work that out. You need to talk about your management team. They are not necessarily the board of directors. So you need to talk a little bit about them. And then your staffing, and then your strategic alliance. So if you're working in computers, you may have signed a deal with HP or IBM or Samsung or whoever is making computers. You will put this in the document. Then you talk about your product and service description. You need to position it. Where are you going to position it? Which level of the market you're going to go in? Then you talk about your competition evaluation of each of your product and services. And you need to talk about your future product, because what happens? Your product gets to a saturation level. Then what do you do after that? You need to make sure you're changing the product or adding new services, new functions, whatever. So that those are important things for you to look at. Then you do a market analysis. You need to define your market. I dare say out of 100 companies coming in, probably 90% of them have not defined their market. They are just assuming it will work. So they need to define their market. Once you've defined your market, you need to define your profile of customers. Who are the ones you're going to address, right? So you need to then look at your competition and talk about the risks which you're going to have. So this is your next chapter. Once you have done that, you will start doing your marketing plan, how your strategies, your sales techniques, how you're going to sell them. You need to do some advertisement. You need to do some promotions. You need to do incentives. You need to do publicity. You need to go to trade shows. And one way to learn about competition is go to trade shows. And as a visitor in trade shows is free. So you can learn about your competitors. And today there's so many trade shows and all of them are very, very specialized. So you may want to do that. The next chapter is called the financial planning. Here you have to tell the assumptions you make. The market has got 20% of the population are children. And as such, we are targeting the 20% population, of which we are looking to address 1% of the 20%. So based on that is how we've made our financial sheet. These are the assumptions we've made. So no one can fault you as long as you give your financial assumptions. So often we get in the investment committee, people turn up and say, I want 25 lakhs. But they won't tell us why they want 25 lakhs. They will only talk about the reason they put 25 lakhs, because that is the maximum that committee gives out. So they come with the maximum ask, but they don't actually describe why they want it for. What are they going to use the funds for? So you need to talk about those here. And how will it you exit? So if the incubation cell gives you 25 lakhs, how will they get their money back? How will they exit out of the startup? So you need to talk about that in this financial plan. And then you do a conclusion. And then in this supporting documents, very important, you keep all the partnership agreements you've made, you keep the full financial statements here, and resume of key persons. Don't talk about irrelevant stuff. If you're doing legal stuff, don't talk about his HR capability. Talk about his capability to handle legal issues related to HR. So you're driving the right skill sets and not the wrong skill sets. So that's where you need to be cautious. That's why sometimes people say every time you apply for a job, you need to tweak your resume for that job profile. Otherwise, you may not be called for interviews. And the same thing happens with the business plan, because it's not been tweaked to the right funder. So it gets rejected. So you need to be cautious about these. What is the use of a business plan? Obviously, communication. For management, if you are an association, if you are a business unit, you need it for your managers. And of course, it helps you to plan. So these are the users of your business plan. How do you get help with your business plan? You have books, you have software, which I don't like to use because the software tells the same thing to everybody. So it is not a good idea. Websites who will help you with, and professionals to help with you. And I've already shown you a typical structure just now. I will share this with you, which you can use. Now, after you have done the business plan, you now need to have a power presentation, we call it. The purpose of the power presentation is to go through the process of, I'm going to go through the process of building it, how you would communicate it, and how you will build it. That's the objective for the next 10, 15 minutes. Now, Please remember, the objective of the power presentation is not the transmission, it's about the reception. Just like radio, the transmission is no use if the person on the other side cannot hear. So the reception has to be good, just like our mobile phone. They say we have transmission, but if it's no coverage, it's absolutely no use. So similarly, your presentation will need to do that. And your presentation need to be geared to the audience and not to the speaker. Often good projects fail because the audience are not persuaded of its worthy or do not understand the project. So your task as a presenter is to hold their attention long enough to make your point. And the next thing we look at, the presentation is to make your message understood and remembered. The important word here is remembered. Then they will call you for a second call. And the main drawback with these objectives is that the average audience has a very short span of attention. Most people don't last after 45 minutes. So it is very, very important. And you need to choose the right time to go to present this to somebody. Don't go during lunchtime because they're in a hurry to go to lunch, or at the time of going home and they're in a hurry to go home. And most of us have a million things in our minds. Next, why would you do this? First, it gives you and your team a chance to show your skill and ability to obtain resources and that your team requires. Secondly, it gives you a chance to look for issues, look at your problems, present them, establish who are your audience and provide input to help you. Finally, it's fun and a chance to network. So there's three phases to it: the planning phase, the preparatory phase, and the delivery phase. During the planning, you need to gather all your material. You need to have a central theme, whatever you're going to do. So for example, we have a dentist among you who said you're going to look at people who need help to clean their teeth. So, or keep their hygiene, your oral hygiene. So your central theme should be built around that. How you would support that particular central theme. How would you move it forward? Then you organize all the content around it. Next, continuing with it, you need to now structure it such a way that people understand. You can use points, humor, quotations, energy, anecdotes, and other tools. But please remember, don't ever start a presentation with a joke, because people in the audience haven't heard anything from you, may not think that you are a serious contender for their investment. So please be cautious during the time. And if you can find some synergy with them, for example, somebody is interested in cricket, then you can maybe talk a little bit about cricket if they're interested in football. So it's always good to find out who's going to be sitting in the committee, who are the people, get a background check on them, what their hobbies are, what they are. It will help you to make the presentation. So this is all the preparatory stage. Then the delivery is how you do. And most of us have a bad habit of putting our hands in our pocket and or pitching our finger. So it becomes, even someone like me, I've done hundreds of presentations. I still have a bad habit of moving here and moving there. So you need to make sure these are controlled to the minimum, not to, I mean, if you don't show any expression, it's also dry and boring. So you need to make sure how you do this. And then if you're using audio and visual, you need to make sure you come early, check the system works. So these are some of the delivery modes you need to do. Now, in your presentation, you need to list the three things you want to achieve. You must be very clear what you want to achieve, and you need to understand your audience and make sure the audience understand what you're trying to do. It's not for you. The presentation is not for you. It's for the audience. So please, please be careful. Next thing, explain the flow of the presentation when you start. Take 25 minutes, spend 5 minutes to wrap up, and usually 15 minutes for your Q&A. So a typical investment presentation will probably last around 45 minutes or less. And you might be handing out paper. It's recommended that you don't hand these out until the end, because what happens if you give somebody something to read? They will start reading those papers and not listen to you. If you're going to hand it out first, tell them to read it after your presentation, make a request. But usually it's better to give all this in the end, not at the start, because they will then sit and read that document and they will not listen to you. That's human nature. It's not them. All of us do that. So we need to avoid that. Next one, use the presentation slides and make sure they are presentable, easy to use. Now spend 2 to 5 minutes on each of these slides. Make sure there's only 5 to 8 lines in bullet form. If you give the audience any material, I've already said this, if you're handing out, make sure it's readable. Often we get things from people, they photocopied it poorly and we cannot read. So you please make sure you check those. And here, I've already said, don't start it with a joke. As you are presenting in a small group, always make sure. And then as presentation to small group, I just checked whether there's somebody asking me any questions. Okay, somebody has asked whether is it required to have pictures, graphs, and so on. Of course, it helps if you are able to demonstrate. Graphs for sure they help you if you can show the progression of the year. Yes, will I share my presentations or whatever? Yes, I will give it to Jaya and she will do the needful, or one of the other IC people will do that. Sorry, just because there were some questions, I wanted to make sure I address them. And so, another thing you don't want to do, and often all of us do this, we look at our PPT and we just read from it. And the purpose of a slide, and I keep saying this when I'm trying to help the big presentation, big application, which is 5X presentation, which is one of the easiest to get a grant from compared to most of these grants. Let's use the slide just as a helper. Let's not even look at them when we're presenting. In case we forget, then we look at the presentation. So that's what makes it flow nicely and shows that you are fully aware of what you're trying to do. Next slide. Just a second. Okay. Speak louder and slowly than usual. Okay, so people can understand you. And don't talk in the same speed. Try and vary so people don't fall asleep, they don't get bored, and focus, stand firm and keep your hands relatively still, as I've already said. Now let's look at the content of a power presentation. All these were used by the garage.com and was alive many years ago. That was Kawasaki was having it. Now it's no more, it doesn't exist anymore, but it's a very good place to start. Introduction and overview is your first slide. Next one, elevated pitch. Next one, your problem statement. Sometimes these days we call them opportunity statement because problems are the ones which lead us to it. So next one is the potential market size. And then we look at other solutions, technology barriers. Continuing on that. You talk about competition, you talk about market and leverage points, talk about your business model, we talk about management team, your status, your future plan, and conclusion. It will become about 10 to 14 slides is what you want to do. Now, your first slide should have the title of your project. What are you looking for and what business you're in? Let's take these 3 companies. What business do you think Microsoft is in? Please answer those who think they know what the response is. Please go ahead. What business do you think Microsoft is in? Anybody?
Software services and cloud platforms.
Say that again, please.
Software services and cloud platforms.
Okay. Who else wants to say anything?
I think some of them are subscription-based business services.
Okay. Others?
So they basically make products and services. They make products that are usable on a computer.
Okay. Now, if you check out them in detail, they will say they are a marketing organization. They take products into the market. All of you have identified all the things they do. They say they take them into the market and they're the best. They're able to do that. So they're not, some people say they do operating systems. They don't agree. Applications, no. They say they're able to do a good job in taking it to the people. Okay. Some of you might be old enough to remember Polaroid. What business do you think Polaroid thought they were in?
Photography.
Photography, but they thought they were in instant photography. So they didn't spend any money, things like scanners, digital photography, and printers. They were just thinking, why did we all go to those days Polaroid? Because we wanted to see the picture immediately where we are visiting. That's why we bought. And today with digital cameras, you can take more than one picture. You can take 10 pictures and have a look at it. If you don't like it, you delete. It doesn't cost you any money. So they didn't realize they had to learn how to do imaging. So they are out of business today. What business is Sony in?
Electronic,
Sorry?
Entertainment.
electronic entertainment.
Very good. What else? Many, many years ago, their CEO said they're in the business of miniaturizing and innovation. If you remember the Walkman, there was already tape recorders out there. They came with the Sony Walkman. Then they came with television screens, monitors, sorry. So all that they have done over the years. So you see how all they're doing. So you need to make sure you're in the right business. So if you say Microsoft is in software, what happens if nobody uses software? They will go out of business. Yes, it's possibly highly unlikely there will be no software. There will always be software possible, but things can change. How many of us thought the computer I'm using today, and as we speak, is more powerful than the supercomputers in the 50s? And if you remember, some of the scientists were saying people will be having this in the next 50 years at home. So there you are. So we need to ensure what business we are in. This is something you define your business, what business you are in. It may not be the obvious. So please define yourself what business you are. This is, some of you would have heard what an elevated pitch is. It came up in the 70s in Silicon Valley. There are many stories, but the real reason that elevated pitch came up was people used to wait outside all these VC offices. And as soon as they saw the partner, they would run inside the office and stick into the office, into the elevator with that particular partner who's an investor. And they will try and tell them a story, which will last 30 to 45 seconds. And if they were able to convince the partner, he will give you a card and say, come and make an appointment with the secretary. That is how the elevated pitch came. It is nothing to do with looking at a Bitcoin and overview and all that. That's not the correct story. A lot of people tell that story, but that's not how the elevated pitch came. Elevated pitch came with you going up with that gentleman or lady on the elevator to the floor and to convince them to get a meeting to do your pitch. And this pitch should have a burning problem, how big your opportunity, how unique you are, and what are the benefits, and the mission statement, and your call to action. This is very, very important. So please remember, you need to have an elevated pitch when you start your presentation. Next one, I have already said, you can call this as a problem statement. You can call it an opportunity statement, whichever you fancy, go for it. And here you need to say, what are you addressing? How are you going to solve the problem? And then you need to make an impression on the person why this is a good problem to solve. Because there is huge amount of market. If there's no market, nobody wants to know about it. So you need to ensure that you are actually working on this. How big, how small, all that is there. Well, so you need to push that across. Here, how does your proposed solution address the problem? What are you going to use? How are you going to solve it? All that has to be spoken here. And next, what is your solution based on? Are you using existing standards? Are you using extending technology? Whatever you're using, you need to be able to explain to these people, ask them so they understand technology. And don't make any assumption that the person you're presenting knows nothing about technology. They would have usually got a briefing. The analyst would have done some work and given them information to ask questions. And you need to talk about technology barriers to entry. Most companies have issues. They are not flexible and they're not scalable. One of the finest examples was between Intel and AMD.
Okay, bhai, good luck here.
Sorry? Hello? Anything? Okay. Flexibility and scalability. AMD and Intel, they were almost at the same level at one time. Then AMD was a startup. They were not able to compete with Intel during the computer rush. So they started losing out. They did not have enough fabric plant. Those days to have a fabrication plant cost $100 million. It was not that they have an inferior product. They were not able to scale. So Intel went ahead. Intel started taking 90% of the market and continues to be a leader in microprocessors. And your product has to be reliable and it must be available. And remember, people like you and I drive technology. Technology doesn't drive by itself. Why is mobile phone happening in India? Almost every house has a mobile phone. Very few of us use a land phone. I don't even remember when I last used a landline. That's how long ago it was. So, and I'm sure most of you are the same. So we drive because we want the mobile. So technology gets further and further. Market determines technology. We are the market. Why others cannot do what we are doing is what you need to talk about here. Here you need to talk about your competition. They have none. I already said at the start of my presentation, if you don't have, there's something wrong. You need to fix that. It's something seriously wrong. Why don't you have any competitors? It's healthy to have competitors. If you don't have competitors, you better worry. Here you talk about your marketing and leveraging point. If you have somebody, for example, you are doing this placing people, as a couple of you are doing. If you've been working in the HR for last 30 years, that's your strength. You know how to place people. You know how to get them jobs. So your product and services will be appreciated by others because you are bringing in strength. And you talk about how you will go to market. You need to hire a team or you're going to outsource, whatever. This is where we talk about that. Next, you need to talk about business models, professional fee, membership, percentage of fee they receive from cases, for example. A fee we link to customer side for their customers to file. So this is a case I did earlier for a dispute resolution. So we will license the system to others for dispute resolution. We will provide our system to dispute resolution association for a fee. So all this is a business model for that particular business, which was a dispute resolution business, which I was an earlier founder at, which has now been sold. Now, your team, who is the CEO? Who is the CTO? Here you talk about relevant experiences and qualifications. And believe me, the right person, the right skill sets can make a difference to your business. So you want to make sure you cover this slide well and good. Next one here, you need to talk about your achievement. Have you raised any money? Have you formed partnerships? Have you tested the team? Have you got any customers? Have you got any revenue? You don't need to worry. If you don't have any revenue, you don't have any customers, it doesn't really matter. You just tell the plan how you're going to get customers, what revenue you're going to do. And the next one here is the future plan. What are your future plans? What are you going to do with the money you raise? And how will your products and services change? And your management in the future. So this is what you need to do very importantly. And in a conclusion, you need to tell the audience what you want to do. What are you going to do for them? And ask them to commit. This is very, very important. And the purpose of a power plan, power presentation, is to get approval for your resources, to raise funding, and also to get suggestions from everybody. I have gone through that fairly rapidly, so I'm going to stop and I'll take any questions. Usually when I do this, we do it like a real workshop where people write every slide and then we review it, but we don't have time for that. Plus online, it's not that easy to do that. So I will be happy to look at anybody's business plan or a presentation you want me to look at. Afterwards, I have no issues. I can do that for you. And I think one or two of you in the audience have done that for. So anytime I'm happy to do that. I will share the 2 templates and also my presentation with Jaya, and you can find me at HTIC when I'm there. If I'm not there, I'm always reachable by my ceo.incubation@htic.iitm.ac.in. And I respond to all my emails within a few minutes, except when I'm doing something like this. Sometimes I'm not able to respond to both, but often I'm able to. So if you drop me a mail, you want to catch up for coffee, tea, whenever time permits, whenever situation is better, more than happy to do that. Now I'm open for questions. Please feel free to ask me anything.
So Shakti from Yali here.
Yes, please tell me.
So my question is in the presentation.
I'm
part.
not able to hear you. Can you?
Yeah, just speak up a little, Sakti. Speak a little loudly.
Am I audible now?
You're audible. Just speak up a little so that we
Okay.
can hear.
Okay.
Maybe into the mic.
Yeah. Just wait. I can maybe. Yeah. So my question is in the presentation part.
Chaya, if you're able to hear, maybe you can tell me because I'm finding it very difficult.
Yeah, you speak, Sakti. If Muthu, I will try to communicate. Yeah, in the presentation.
Sakti is
Okay,
on mute.
we've lost you.
On mute.
Sakti, you've muted yourself.
Okay, we wait for him to come back. So if anyone else has a question, I
Yeah,
can take
there
that.
any other questions?
I can take that first.
Sir, good evening, sir.
Good evening.
This is Professor Elil Krishnan from Remco's Medical Technologies Private Limited.
Tell me, please.
I just wanted to know the business model which you were mentioning. What are the important elements which need to be put in the business model, sir?
The business model, you need to talk about the business part, your partners, your activities you are going to do. That 9 boxes which I showed.
Yes.
You need to fill each one of those boxes to ensure you generate the activities, generate the partners, and then what customer proposition you are going to bring, value proposition, who your channels are, and who would your customer segmentation.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. How do you define a CEO if it is not one of the founders, directors? What are the expectations from them? How do we share? Okay, this is a fantastic question. I actually have a startup now. Somebody wants to acquire them, but they will not acquire it unless they change the founder is the CEO. They will not buy the company because the founder is the CEO. So they have said if they hire a CEO or one of the other founders becomes a CEO, they'll take the company. So it's a very important question. If one of you are not a CEO, you need to find somebody who can take you to the next level. Don't just hire anybody. The person should have knowledge of their business. They should have a network which they can take you to the next level. You don't have to worry about the trade secrets because you can write an agreement with them, an employment agreement where they cannot disclose what they are, and you can take them to court if they do. But today, it's very difficult to make anybody hold anything. I mean, last week I was on a call with the University of Massachusetts in the United States where investors were there. None of the investors will sign an NDA anymore because they see so many plans. Even in India now, nobody wants to sign an NDA because we are dealing with so many. So it is difficult. So I think you don't have to worry about that part. You just make sure they will come and fit your organization. They're able to get along with the founders and they're able to create value. Since they're coming from outside, they should not create the founders to split. Right? They should not create any politicking around. So make sure you take care of that. Then you define the responsibility. Why you bring the CEO from outside? Is it to raise money? Is it to bring customers? Is it to correct something? You need to decide. I hope that helps, Chandra. Chandra, was that helpful? You're on mute. You're on mute, so okay, no worries. Please, next, please.
I have a question.
Please.
Is it necessary that every startup have a CEO?
Okay, if you ask me, it's all about the name of a title, right? So it doesn't really matter what you call them, but you need somebody to lead the team. If everybody is the same, then nobody will make the decision, correct? So one person will have to make that decision. It's just like in the when you go on the plane, there's always they always say commander. They don't say captain. They're both captains, but only one of them has to command. So similarly, yes, you need to have somebody who can lead. You can call them anything you like, manager, leader, whatever you want to call them, but you need to have somebody who sets the directions.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hello, Muthu, it's Nishal here. Can I ask a question?
Please.
Yeah, you presented a really nice layout for both the business plan and the presentation. If your company has many products, let's say portfolio of products that are very distinct and maybe targeting different markets, what are your thoughts on presenting all of them in some format, or just the key product and then maybe some sort of summary of others? What's your opinion on what should go into business plan?
It's a great question. One of the things you don't want to do is confuse the listener. So you need to choose which are the products you want to push at that meeting. For example, if you think you have an A-class product which will get you money, maybe you present that first. As time goes along, you can take the other products along. As a startup, you're not supposed to have too many products, right? So you need to focus on 1 or 2 products.
Okay, thank you.
If you go and show 20 products, I would be wondering whether you have the capability to make them.
Even few for that matter, it just can be a difficult story to tell. Yeah.
You can group them. You can say, we have a suite of products. For example, take Microsoft's that Word, Excel, and all that together. You can call it a suite of products. So you only have one product name, and then you explain what all it does.
Okay, thank you.
You just try to minimize showing too many products, because that's always a worrying factor for people who are wanting to fund. Not knowing whether you'll have time to, whether you'll have the marketing capability, the funding capability, and all that. So be careful.
Thank you.
Okay, no worries. We have a lab prototype tested and ready, but we do not have customer-centric designs. None of the vehicles that we are developing has critical challenges of identifying product market fit. Should we go for market discovery or make small bets with? Okay, very good question. One of the things you could probably do is, before you start doing anything next, maybe select your potential users and talk to them. What are they looking for? Don't tell them what you have. Find out what they would like to use. Target the audience. Talk to maybe about 50 people to 100 people. Then start moving to the next level. Don't go in a hurry, because autonomous vehicle, you need to get the authorities to agree, right? Because it can create accidents, whatever. Talk to people who might want to use it. For example, people who do delivery, people who do healthcare, delivery of medicines, and so on. So talk to potential users and see what can you do before you start working on your MVP. Because as you rightly put there, you require lots of money. So in order for you to defend yourself, why you need lots of money, you need to show. I've spoken to 10 hospitals. They all said they would use this to deliver, for example, tissues, blood banks, whatever. They say this can be used. We will be willing to do that. So you got 10 potential customers. And then you talk to 10 restaurants who might be willing to use this. I'm just giving you examples. Please don't take them as their potential customers. You need to work it out. So it could be a working mother or a working father. I don't know whether this would work. They might want a self-driven car to pick up the kids from school, but is it safe? We don't know. So you need to think about all this. So see how that would work. So that's my suggestion. Alok, just take a look at that. And then Chandra, some investors say that the CEO must have equity. Yes, the reason the CEO must have equity, they are saying, even now the granting body has started saying that the PI must have, the principal investigator must have 10% minimum. So for example, the big grant which BIRAC gives out, in the past there was no such rule. The new rule is the person who's going to lead it will have to have 10%. The reason for that is to tie them up. But you don't have to give the 10% in one go. You give it in separate, you make some, what do you call, deliverables. As they deliver, you can give them. You don't have to give it away straight away. You and the CEO have an agreement, 20% over a 3-year period. Once we raise $10 million, I will raise 20 million, I'll do this. Once we are in the market, we will do this. So you have a separate agreement with him, which you don't have to worry about showing it to the investor. Is that okay, Chandra?
Yes, yes.
Explain to this?
Yeah, I got it. Yes.
Okay.
Thank
And
you.
your next question you ask, if we have developed 2 products in 2 different sectors, should we call it as another section of the company? If we pitch, will be the company as a whole or one product. You don't have to separate each time. It's only 2 products. You say this is a product 1, this is a product 2. And how do you separate? And sometimes that you can do internally into, you can have 2 separate business accounts. One for product A, one for product B, which the accountant can help you to set up internal books. It is not difficult. We do that at our center. IC does that. We do that. We have separate, an accountant will set it up. We call it separate books or whatever, where they will set it up. For example, if we take our center has got research. We have one set of activities for research and one set of activity for incubation. So they're kept separately. The books are maintained separately, but it is still in one entity. All the money goes into the same account, but we account for it for each of the grants or which of the jobs separately. So you can do that. You don't have to worry about that. So in our case, we do a UC, utilization certificate for each project. So we show what we have done. So you don't have to worry about that. Your accountant can help you set it up. You can even have 2 bank accounts, Chandra. You can give one to this product A, one to product B. It's entirely your decision. You don't have to worry too much about that.
Okay. Now,
Yeah,
I
go ahead.
asked this question because when the pitching is done
Uh-huh.
and the investor looks at your company, he wants to know what is going to be your actual future of the company and what is going to be his take from the company. So when you have 2 different products, one of them expressed that it is confusing which product you're going to develop as a company like that.
No, I think you might have not been able to deliver it properly to them. You could have said, we have 2 products. This product is what we have so far done. This is the second product. This is what we plan to do. So I think the explanation maybe you can share the presentation with me and I might be able to help you with to clarifying the presentation. See, they can't argue about you having 2 products or 10 products as long as you clearly define how you do it.
Yes.
Okay. Now the concern would be like earlier was asked by the other person. If I have 10 products, you as an investor, you get worried.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to ask you.
What will I focus on all the 10 products? Probably not, because I don't have the time. So take an example of Apple those days. They were working on a product called I forget the daughter's name now, Lisa. Okay, but they were losing money. So what they did was they scrapped many products when they're losing money. Like they actually had another thing like the Palm Pilot. They called it Newton. It never went to market. It was like, lots of money was spent. So they chopped off and then they started focusing on the Mac. And they brought him back and they started doing things. And then slowly by slowly, they built other products. But he came back for the Macintosh. Right? So you need to be clear with that, because sometimes with our love for a product, we might ignore the selling product. And that's what was happening in the early stages of Apple.
Okay. Yeah.
So that is why the board removed him the first time, because they were spending a lot of money, they were losing money, they were bleeding. You can the Netflix has those movies called Jobs. You could watch both the movies and you can probably answer your question better. How they chopped it off and started correcting things.
Do we have any further questions?
Yeah, I have one question.
Please go ahead.
So now, if there's an early stage startup and they're looking to raise funds, and let's say for the product development, it takes about 9 to 12 months to get the product out in market, right? would you suggest it's better to raise funds all at once at the start of the product development stage, or would you suggest you raise funds in tranches through the next 1 year in smaller ticket sizes?
It depends what you're doing. It's always better to have a commitment, because if you go by tranches, right, you may not be able to get the next amount because you haven't actually disclosed it to anybody else. You could go to someone and say, I need $100 million for the next 1 year. This is gate 1, this is gate 2, gate 3. Can you commit to those gates?
Okay.
So you don't get stuck. When you make gate 1, you have money for gate 2, and then to 3 and 4. So if you don't plan it that way, you may not have money to further your product.
Okay. And so what would be the ideal milestones that investors look for while raising funds?
They usually look at a team. First thing they look at, if they are comfortable with the team, they put even money if they're not sure about the product, but it's never the other way around.
Okay.
So you need to ensure your team is good. That is why another thing they like to have at least 2 co-founders.
Okay.
The reason for that, if one of them, something happens to them, not even fight. Let's say some unfortunate thing happens to the founder, their money is gone. I mean, life is cruel, right? So they have, if there's 2, the chances of anything going wrong is limited. So you need to ensure those are taken care of.
Okay.
To raise money. Your team is very, very important.
Okay.
And always, now I don't see this happening in many of the Indian startups, but we need to start working on this. We should have a scientific board who will help you with the technology and so on. And we should have a business board which will help you to go to market. You can have one board to start with if you don't have enough people. At least get 1 or 2 people on your board to advise you and help you. You can always compensate them later. And most of these people are actually extremely successful. I mean, they could be our alumni, could be former startups. Reach out to them, get them on your advisory board. And most of them don't actually ask for anything.
Right.
And once you have a good name in your advisory board, the investor also feels confident, saying, oh, he wouldn't have given his name if it was a bad site. Or she wouldn't have given a name. So do that. And one of the ways you can make the board happen is attend some of the mentoring session, some of the programs like these when we have people coming. I mean, normally when we are back in office, I mean, we used to do lunch and learn where 30, 40 people used to come. They used to hang out together. And it's a good place to find a potential advisor or a mentor.
Okay.
So, I mean, another 6 months, a year, I'm sure that will get back to normal. And then we can do that. So like I see and us as well, we do this mentoring sessions on a regular basis. You can bounce your ideas off to them, talk to them. Many of them will be happy to be advisors.
Okay. Right, sir.
Yeah. And another area we are not touching, and I think it's important, IIT Madras has got 600 faculty. You should reach out to them to see whether they can help you too. And faculty generally are not interested in asking for money. They're more interested in looking at technology and so on. So you have a wonderful opportunity being in this ecosystem. You can reach out to any of those faculty. I mean, you don't have to make them work for you. Just brainstorming once in a while.
Right, sir.
So it's that we are not doing well. We need to improve on that.
Okay, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Good question. It's a great segue from what you just answered about the advisory board. We are right now validating our process. We believe something, we've created the process around it. We've been running it for about a year. Maybe in another year, we'll be ready to build technology. How do we find the right CTO?
Right, CTO.
Yes.
Okay. You need to define what are the things you want to build and then work on the skill set and then look for a person with those skill sets. So if you're looking at working on Java, make sure your CTO understands Java technology. If you're looking at platform, make sure they have experience in platform. And unless you know what technology you're going to build, and if you don't know, then talk to a few people who know technology and then define your CTO.
Well, it's not so much the technology. Yeah, to answer your question, we are not sure of what is the right technology to use. But that is further down the line. What I'm talking about is more like an enterprise architecture.
An advisor architecture.
Enterprise architecture.
Okay, so what are the things you might be able to do? Reach out to some faculty at IIT Madras who would be willing to help you look at that.
So now my question to Jaya, would we come to you, Jaya, for that kind of a list of people that we could approach?
Sure. So why don't we have that conversation, Rajni? Usually there are a
Okay.
couple of ways in which we can approach this, but yes, we are certainly open to kind of looking at which faculty can support you in this.
Wonderful.
So
Thank
yeah,
you.
do reach out to us and we can have the
And
conversation.
if not faculty, one of our mentor pool might be able to guide you with this. So,
Sure.
just
Thank you.
do that. And that's what I said a few minutes ago. Unfortunately, we are not tapping into both those resources well enough. Okay, I shouldn't say we're not tapping it. We're not tapping
Not
it to the
sufficient.
maximum.
Yeah.
To the maximum.
Yeah.
Where we should. I mean, we have 600 faculty. And it's only, I mean, okay, today we can't say it's only walk away, but you know what I mean? It's not that far away for us to reach out.
Sure.
And most of them are quite generous. They're willing to talk.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Muthu Shakti here from IIT.
Hi, Sakti. Go ahead, please.
Yeah. So, sir, my question on the presentation side. So we are explaining the business model and how we are selling and how we are making money and what's our volume projection kind of things. Do we really, what kind of expectation an investor have? How he is getting his money from that business plan? Do we need to present some sense in the presentation and how it should be presented?
If I'm not mistaken, you're asking me, how will the investor make his money back? Is that correct?
Yeah, money, yeah.
Yeah. So unless you show me how I can get my money back, it's just like the bank. The reason you put your money in the bank is you get interest, right? Yeah. So at least you know you get 2%, 3% interest. So you got to convince them. They give you 5 lakhs in about a year's time, you will double it or triple it or whatever and give it to them. So unless you show them that they can get a return, they will not be interested to fund. And now a lot of people get angry when they don't get funded. The reason you don't get funded is because you haven't convinced that person they can make money out of it. Please understand, most of these people's money is not free money, right? So they're not going to give the money. That is why we always say startups first try to raise grants and then go for angel round and then go for VC and then go for banks, little by little.
Okay.
So if you can't show a return, nobody will give you money. Only place you will be generous is IC funds. They're generous. Nobody else is as generous as them. And one thing, there Ashok is extremely generous. Even when the rest of the committee says don't give, he will say, no, never mind. It's okay, we'll try. So they are the only ones who are generous. No one else is generous. I'm sure that was not an answer you were hoping for, but if you can't make money, nobody will give you money.
No, sir. So actually, to proving we are capable to make a good money through a discounted cash flow method or something, what kind of essence we can present in a presentation that, okay, so that they can digest?
Yeah, in the presentation, you can show to them, if I get 5 lakhs, I will be able to bring income, which is 50 lakhs. And if you own 20% of my company, that 5 lakhs becomes 10%. 10 lakhs. So he gets a 100% return there, no?
Okay. Okay.
So something like simple like that, you need to show.
Sure. That's I got. So
usually that's why they ask you, okay, if I give you 5 lakhs, what will you give me? So you might say, I will give you 2% of my company. So when the 2% of the company is worth $100 million, my share, which was 5 lakhs, has now become $2 million.
Sure, sir. Sure.
So you can see how much the difference is.
Yeah. Thank you, sir.
No problem. I can always take a look at any of your PPTs and give you suggestions if you like.
So
No
maybe
problem.
we can take one last question and then let Muthu go. So if there is anyone with any last thoughts, any last questions, any requests, we could take that before we close for the day. And like Muthu said, I mean, he has kind of very kindly offered to help you with your business plan. I mean, that's actually, like he rightly said, that's what we do. I mean, some of our startups who are here today have kind of benefited from the in-person workshop, which we would do. And it's a little difficult to do that online, but he has kindly offered to help you. I would just request you to be a little mindful of his time. But yes, I mean, please reach out to him and, if you need any help. So if there are no further questions, please reach out to us as well. We will try to share the templates and the, whatever materials that Muthu forwards us, we'll kind of share to all those who have come in for the session today. Please do use that, and you can get back to us and Muthu if you have any questions or need some help with that. And so if there is nothing further, I'll request Sriparna to kind of just thank.
Ask the wrap-up question. So, Mr. Muthu, so do you think we can come to you to get started with our business plan? We spend some time with you to understand in specific where do we start and how do we approach. So
No problem. You just tell Jaya, she will sort it out.
Okay, great.
No
So
problem.
Jaya, possibly once we get the templates from you, we'll go through the templates and we'll
Yeah,
try
that would be good.
gather our
But before we meet, please write something. I mean, I don't expect it to be everything perfect and all. That's not
Yes,
important.
yes.
But if it's blank, then I won't be able to do any good.
Absolutely,
And then
I understand that.
Once you fill it up, you send it to me first, and then I will look at it, and then we will set up. Unfortunately, we can only do Zoom right now, but it's okay. We'll manage. We'll manage.
Great.
We'll manage for now.
Thank you so much.
But maybe next week I will start going back into the office. I'll see. I'm not sure. I'll decide.
Yeah, I'll be fine to come and meet you in the office.
Because on my HTIC, we've had too many of this COVID stuff.
Okay.
I think we had almost 20 of them also getting it.
Okay.
And so we decided to. One of our girls also has it. Some days she's okay, some days she's not okay. It's already 3 weeks now. But she insists on coming to work. She still comes online to work every day. But yes, yesterday she was okay. Today she was not in good shape. So sad, right? So we'll see.
Can we close this one last question, Muthu, which Professor Chandra has? It's in the chat. She's asking if there is any forum to engage a CEO, or is it only through word of mouth?
I mean, there are places where you can go and meet people and look for CEO. But you see, the important part about getting a CEO, you need to get along with them. So it's always good to get a recommendation or a link. That's my take. I mean, there are CEO forums in the Google, in what you call LinkedIn and so on, where you can look for people. But it is best to hire somebody you know, or through somebody who tells you, because you don't know what they're going to be like, right? It's an important piece of puzzle for your organization, especially startup. So my take is ask people you know, attend functions, talk to people, seminars, and you'll find somebody useful. I hope that helps.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, one last question.
Yes, please.
And sorry, since you've seen so many startups, what is the average number of hours startup co-founders work in a week?
How many hours?
Yep.
That depends on you.
What's the average?
Most of them would be working about anything between 16 to 18 hours.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Because the reason they work that long is not because they fancy working that long. They don't have enough people to work.
Yeah.
Right.
So that's why they end up doing all that. And don't forget, you have to pay. So as a startup, you don't have money to pay. So you end up doing everything yourself.
Yeah, we're experiencing that.
Yeah. So what you do is you do what is comfortable. But one thing I told my young startup last night who I mentor in Raipur, he's overdoing it. He's only 21 years old. He's non-stop messaging me, asking me things to do. I have no issues, but I don't want him to burn out. He's only 21 years old. In the next 6 months, he will have no energy to continue. So you pace yourself. Don't do 16, 18 hours just because I told you. You pace yourself. If you think 6 hours is what you need to do now, you do 6 hours. Slowly build it. Slowly keep adding. Add. Don't burn yourself out in the initial stages because there's no income. Sometimes not many people can take that.
Sure. Thank you.
Right? Don't burn yourself out. That's the game. Not to burn yourself. It's a marathon race. This is not a sprinter.